It's time for the show about the people and the places of the Carolinas, with the occasional visitors. In addition to hosting the award-winning syndicated TV show Life in the Carolinas, Karl White writes a weekly syndicated column and now hosts this weekly show, the Life in the Carolinas podcast. Now you can hear the story about the stories. And now, here's your host, Karl White.
Welcome, guys. It's great to see you.
Great to be here.
Thank you for having us. Good to see you as well.
You're certainly welcome. Good to see you, Mooch.
Say hello.
Hello.
He's doing some business.
Wow. Well, you guys didn't fly in, but you do spend a lot of time in the air, don't you?
Absolutely.
I remember a few years ago, we interviewed a fellow that was in the Carolinas for a fair in the western part of the state, and he gets shot out of a cannon.
Okay.
Right? And he had the Guinness Book World Record.
Is it Dave Smith?
Yes.
Yep.
Dave,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Dave Smith.
Yep.
That's right.
Okay.
Great guy.
Yes, he is.
We really enjoyed him. I mean, he obviously is incredibly talented.
Yeah.
But
He's crazy.
Just a nice guy.
He's nice, but oh my God, some of the shots he does is
right.
ridiculous.
Well, you can imagine how surprised I was and happy to hear that you guys were going to be in the Carolinas and doing what your family has done for many, many years. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, as far as back as I know, I'm 7th generation. My son now is the 8th generation, and we've been performing and known for doing aerial stunts. And I'm just trying to carry on, the family tradition from my great-grandparents, my grandmother who taught me, and my mom who's taught me, now teaching my son, and married a great guy that is also in the circus, so it makes it easier. He did tell me, he always wanted to marry a hand balancer or contortionist because they don't come with a lot of props. So he ended up marrying an aerialist. I have a lot of props and heavy props.
I grew up, Moochie, please be quiet. I grew up doing a hand balancing act with my father.
Okay.
And so all our props were just our costumes that we had, so we didn't have any equipment or anything.
It was you.
It was just, and then I got together with her, and her family's got high wire equipment and trapeze and these sway poles that are 100 feet high. And I'm like, I'm not used to that kind of. I'm not used to pounding stakes into the ground. I'm used to just getting there and
soft hands.
Yeah,
right.
He's a hand balancer.
Very soft.
Right. So for those who don't know who you are, and not everybody would run in your circle, right? Unless they're in the audience. Tell folks who, going way back, the most famous member of your family
would be my great-grandfather, Karl Wallenda.
Frequently, he appeared alone, like in this stunt when he walked across an 1,100-foot cable strung 700 feet above the Tallulah Gorge in Georgia. He was so supremely confident that he did it wearing a microphone to narrate his own crossing.
It's a little windy now. More wind than I expected. God is with me. I believe everything will be all right.
He was kind of the one who, paved the way for all of us. My name is Ringling Brothers.
A little closer so you can hear you.
And he's the one who brought the family over from Germany in the late 20s. Got scouted out by Ringling Brothers, and him and his wife, which is my great-grandmother, Helen Wallenda, came over and performed with a troupe that they brought over with some cousins and uncles and his brothers. And they worked with Ringling Brothers for 17 years. And they made their debut in the United States in the most iconic arena in the United States is Madison Square Garden.
Yes.
So, and they had, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was like a 15-minute standing ovation. I mean, you can Google it.
Oh, sure. No, it was a long time.
It was something, and they went back to the dressing room, and my great-grandmother was crying and throwing the costumes in the suitcase, and so we're going back to Germany. They were booing us because they were chanting and stomping and hooting and hollering.
And she didn't know.
But they didn't understand that type of applause. And look,
Right.
I get goosebumps even talking about it. And that's when Mr. Ringling came right away to the dressing room and offered them a multi-year contract. And they did. They toured with Ringling Brothers for 17 years. And that's how the Wallendas kind of became known in the United States. Then my great-grandfather then decided to put the troupe a little bit stronger together and start building his own brand and his own circus. And he did tour the Great Wallenda Circus in the United States. And that gave him opportunity to bring more of our family over from Europe, and cousins and friends. And it, you know, it really worked well because so many things were not working out well in Germany at that time. So with that, you know, it just kind of progressed. But then my grandparents still worked for other circuses and other shows, as so do we. We produce our own shows, but we still work for other people as well. And then in 1962 is when they created the 7-person pyramid, which did collapse in Detroit, Michigan, leaving 2 dead and 1 paralyzed.
That whole thing was running through my mind from the time we started to go down till I hit the floor.
Like they said, the show must go on. My grandfather, with broken ribs and all, went back up the next day, continued an act. And then us, as the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, in 1998, went back to Detroit and conquered Detroit with completing the trick. I personally was not part of the trick, but my mother and my aunts and my uncles and my uncle that led the troupe at that time tried to have as many of the family members. I think there was 13 of us in the act. So there was a lot of us.
So what's that like for you? I mean, to be part of, and I know that's a big question. I'm sure you've had questions like that. And I'm not going to ask you how you feel about being part of this amazing family, because I would think that's kind of obvious to all of us to see the excitement and happiness on your face.
Oh, absolutely. I just think it's a blessing. You know, everybody says, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family.
Right.
So, but I can't complain about my family. We have a big, colorful family. Don't get me wrong. We have family drama. We're like every family. There's nothing
Tell us more.
ordinary about us.
You need to know what you got into.
Yeah,
I know what I'm into.
He knew. He waited 8 years to ask me to be his wife, so he made sure he knew everything.
So he had been doing reconnaissance. You saw.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You knew exactly what was going to happen.
So.
Yes, but the reason I waited 8 years because we worked together on a traveling show for 3 years, and then we ended up going to. We got a contract in Hawaii but it was a 1-year contract. So I figured, okay, well, once we know we're coming back, I'll propose and we'll come home and get married. But the contract kept getting extended, and we ended up staying for 5 years. I'm like, well, I don't want to propose to her, then fly her family over here is going to be it's going to cost way too much money to fly all these people.
That's a story anyways.
So then we came into our final year of our contract, and then we got engaged, and then we came back to Sarasota. And
did you string him along, or were you like immediately, okay?
Oh, he knew. He knew. I couldn't do that to him.
Right.
So.
No, because I proposed. We were finishing our show, and I proposed during the finale. So she couldn't string me in the show. So if she strung me along, that would have been not too good.
I'll think about it.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you in a year.
Yeah.
No, I said yes.
Yeah, that's great.
But no, our family. It's a blessing to be with this type of having this option to travel and tour. And I feel like even to bless people, we work some of these small towns and small fairs and stuff, and people come up to us after our show and they've never even seen a circus.
Right.
This is our very first time here in North Carolina, so we would like all of you to join us with a big round of applause. Thank you to your county fair committee. It's because of them why it was possible for Circus Incredible at your fair this year. Thank you.
So for us to be able to bring a little bit of circus, even though we don't have animals and lions and tigers and, extreme acts or something, but bring them some type of family entertainment that they've never witnessed, that's what is so special. And that's what even makes our job even more worth what we do, and I think more of a blessing.
I think there's a big appreciation for generational things that are honored. I think we all find that fascinating. I mean, the fact that all these generations, you know, have just stacked on top of each other of doing similar things and entertaining people. Why don't we talk about that for a moment? It's obvious that you're doing amazing things in the air that are quite dangerous, right?
Yeah, it can be.
But being that person, being that family now that brings happiness and excitement and thrill to people's lives, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think it's just, you know, it means that my job, it's doing what I want it to do. It's bringing some type of, you know, if that person comes to our show that day and they're having a bad day, or, you know, like I had mentioned, that they've never even seen a circus, and being exposed to an art and a discipline that, you know, we've trained our entire lives. You know, we're still training, we still condition. And for them to have that little bit of appreciation or to brighten someone's day, it means, like, I don't even have words for what it means to me, because that means I'm blessed by blessing that person. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite memory? Is there something that, you know, you're just like...
Yes. Our son is on the floor on YouTube.
I don't know, because we've had so many, like, so lots, a little bit, lots. Well, one thing that's very special to my husband and I both, I would say, is, and this kind of leads back to my family coming over from Europe, and I wanted to mention this. So the very first venue that they played was the old Madison Square Garden. So like Simon had mentioned, we do NBA and NCAA halftime shows with one of the acts that we feature in our Circus Incredible, and it's the balancing act that Simon performs. It's Rollabola. And we wanted to incorporate our son into the act, because now him and I had done halftime shows for many, many years, and we're a known act. And we're like, well, you know, we had the baby, and everybody asked us, so when are you going to get the baby in the act? When are you going to get the baby in the act? Well, he was 18 months old. 18. And we were like, said to our manager, we think he's ready. We have a trick. We're ready to put him in the act. You know, we're going to bring him out. We're going to start him like I started, like Simon started. Get him in the costume. We got to get him in front of the audience. He's going to do the balance in the hand trick, and then I'm going to put him on. Simon's going to put him on his shoulders in the act. And we had the contract for the New York Knicks to do the halftime in Madison Square Garden. And so we said to our manager, let's make that be his debut. And we did a whole thing, a whole write-up. Right. This is where my great-grandparents, his great-great-grandparents made their debut. Wow. This is obviously the new Madison Square Garden, because it moved a block somehow. Right. But the ceiling is still the same, pieces of it, I guess. And they were like, can you send us a little video of the practice? We're like, sure. We did it in our backyard. And they're like, sold. So he made his debut in Madison Square Garden for the Knicks, for the halftime show with Simon. I got to be part of it. So
and it's all downhill from there.
Yeah, and then
where else do you go?
I cried. He cried. I mean, that's one very emotional, you know, place for us, because there's so much history there. Also, not to mention, and not to mention, I mean, how many people have performed in Madison Square Garden in New York City?
It's almost like I hate to use the word bookend, but it's not the bookend, but it's almost the perfect bookend, you know, with the youngest and the oldest and everybody in between. And
he is America's youngest halftime performer. But Guinness...
I don't know for how many more years.
We don't know for how many more years, but that's his...
But for now.
That's his headliner. So, but from there, I mean, we have done Staples Center. He has done, you know, performed for the Stanley Cup Finals just now. We did for the Avalanche.
He did it was 70s night theme we did a Clippers game in the Staples Center, and we dressed him up as Freddie Mercury. He had the little white beater and the jeans, and he ran out to Bohemian Rhapsody. So, there's lots of memories. We've done a Hollywood Bowl we performed for with a full orchestra. That was a really cool experience.
Wow, that's great.
Madison Square Garden, we worked like a lot of the cruise ships, like, you know, Holland America, Princess,
so you're doing it all.
Theme parks,
It's so hard to say which is our favorite.
Like give you one example. one of my favorite memories, we did it's when The Greatest Showman just came out, so like circus, like super popular, everybody wants it. So, and we do corporate shows and stuff, so they reached out to us to do it was a 22nd wedding anniversary for a couple in West Palm Beach. And they have this like mega mansion, and so they wanted Lyric's family. They hired him to do a high wire over the fountain in their front entrance in their garden. So they wanted to just walk the wire back and forth while their guests arrived.
On the red carpet.
On the red carpet.
Yeah.
And so you're walking up top. While
So then they have like an Olympic-sized pool that they had completely converted into like a theater, like a mobile theater. It was like an indoor theater. Right. And so they were doing their thing. They're doing a sound rehearsal in the tent. And it was just me and the sound guy. And Mooch was just born. He was like 3 or 4 months old. And so I'm sitting there. And
he was the man.
They have the stage set up. They're doing the sound check. And Hugh Jackman walks out. And he starts doing his whole thing, and it's just me and him in the audience. He's like all drooling on me. I'm like, oh my god, because I like comic books. I'm like, oh my god, Wolverine. I'm not even thinking Greatest Showman. This is crazy. So, and that's you never know, like what you're gonna look at her grandma, like 81 years old. She's in a Miley Cyrus video. What are you talking about? So just our livelihood. We get to travel so much and do so many unexpected things every year. I think that's one of the biggest things that we both enjoy, because it's not like okay, I'm here and I do this. It's kind of more like a organized chaos, I would say, where it's like we kind of know what we're doing, but we don't know what we're doing.
But it's like joy on both sides, it sounds like. It's not only
I love it.
For your audience, but you're getting a kick out of it too.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. And it's like we'll tour now with Circus Incredible, fairs and festivals all the way until mid-October. And then come end of October is basketball season. But we don't know our basketball schedule until the schedule comes out. And then we have to have our booking manager do all of that for us and figure out that. So we don't know who we're going to work for. We assume there's some staple teams that we know they bring us in every season. Sure. Sometimes they bring us in 3 times a season.
And things like last year we did a game for the Grizzlies, but the day before we had our flights ready, but the day before he had an ear infection, so we can't fly if you get ear infection. So we had to rent a car.
So you're driving.
Drive 900 miles, do the game the next day, but then we had a gig in Tampa at noon the next day. So we finished like 10:30 at night, jumped in the car, drove straight. It was like 900 miles straight to Tampa, and we got to the gig like 2 hours before the gig started.
Save your kids' eardrum.
No, and it's normal.
It's just you get in the car and you go.
No, we just did 1,800 miles in 2 days and didn't sleep, and we got to perform. So
you put the show on.
We didn't miss the show. I didn't call and cancel and say, hey, our kid is sick, or they didn't even know. We showed up. The doctor gave him the antibiotics. We drove there. He worked, and he didn't even cry.
Isn't that a good message, for life? Because a lot of times we let so many things stop us. Stop us from moving forward. Yeah. It can be sick. I mean, there's some things that are legit.
Oh,
yes, absolutely.
You just can't go. Sorry, but. Well, a lot of times we just need to push on, and there's something really good on the other side, right?
Absolutely. And for she does aerial with her mom, like a trapeze kind of act. And when we were on a traveling show, we did a different town every day. We did like 180 towns.
Wow.
So like you would get to the town. They'd let us in the building around like 7 or 8 in the morning. The shows are at 4:30 and like 7:30. And every building's different. We have no clue what the building looks like until you get there. One building is 80 feet high. Next day you get there, it's 30 feet high. There's girders, there's no girders, and you got to be prepared for literally every problem-solving solution you can think of.
You really need to know your room, don't you?
Yeah, so you get there and you kind of work with whatever you have, and you get used to that. Right. I think that's a good thing to have, like especially in life. You do, like you said, things come along. Maybe not go your way, but you have to overcome and go forward and have a just outlook.
You work sick. You work tired. You work hungry. You have to go to the bathroom. Yeah. You just do it.
I know it's for self-employed people, but for the circus, we joke like I didn't want to do 9 to 5, so I started doing circus. Now I work 24/7. Right. And it's true because we're always like when we're not performing,
you're going to perform.
Like today, our trailer started leaking. Got up at 7 o'clock in the morning. We were calling, trying to figure out and it was a whole 4-hour ordeal. We finally got it fixed. So it's always something that happens.
You have the warranty though.
Yes,
we have the warranty.
But
so that's smart.
Simon with tools, and the way technology is, we had a camera technician walk him through everything.
I called him. He accessed my phone.
You called it in?
Yeah, he accessed my phone camera. I showed him where it was, and he has a little arrow, and he's pointing like exactly what to do. Like
we didn't have a tool.
I'm like a robot. He's like, do this, do that.
The putty here.
Yes, basically that's what it was.
You know
like, wow.
I was like, I'm impressed.
Right.
Simon fixed it.
So Simon just went up a couple of notches.
Oh,
right?
he did.
Yeah, he's extra handy.
Absolutely.
Yep. So
you travel with a lot of entertainers, different types of entertainers, right?
Yes.
Magicians, puppeteers, all sorts of people. Putting you on the spot again, like, who do you enjoy most traveling with? Not so much the person, but the things. What's the most complimentary for your family? What is Mooch like? What is he? What entertains him?
YouTube.
YouTube. Oh,
yeah.
As you can see, thank God. Thank God for YouTube. And I remember, like, when I was a kid traveling, like, you just count trees as you drive.
Right.
He's got like entertainment now.
Sure.
It's so crazy. I'm 37, and like I didn't have internet growing up. It's so hard to imagine life without it now. Like we have access all the time. Like we didn't have cell phones until like 10, 11, 12 years ago. But I don't know if I have any type of particular person or people I enjoy most. Yeah, because we work all the time with so many different people from so many different countries and from so many different backgrounds. And
maybe that's it. Maybe that's the diversity and seeing how.
And you never look at like if you're working people from like Mexico, or you're looking at people working from like Africa or people from Europe or whatever. It's like we're there together to put on a show. Right. We're all have one goal, and like nobody like. I don't know. It's like it's not even a thing.
So we go to these trade shows where we market ourselves and sell our show particularly for like fairs and festivals. And there we have friends that they're magicians. We have friends that have petting zoos. We have friends that, are singers and one-man band type of strolling show.
Wood carvers, pig racers,
we all
frisbee dogs, dinosaurs.
We all have some type of common denominator because we are all in this to make a living, and to book ourselves, so we can all, complain about this or complain about gas prices or complain about our RV or complain about.
I'll complain about diesel prices.
Yeah. So.
Oh my gosh.
But at the end of the day, I think we all kind of get along because I don't think that there's one person, and that I would say I couldn't single out, because we'll do a fair or a show or a play. And, we'll have like friends that are on the other side of fairgrounds, and their show will just complement our show, and our show will complement their show, just because we know it's clean family entertainment.
Right.
Yeah, like here we do like a circus type, and then Captain Jim has a magic show. Right. So it's like entertainment for
all
everybody.
Ages.
And that's a good thing.
Oh, absolutely.
That's great.
So maybe that's it. It's not necessarily what they do, but everyone is there to do a great job.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Everyone there is to entertain, bring
like
a bit of happiness.
Pieces of the puzzle. Like our show's a little piece of the puzzle. People can come and enjoy for 25, 30 minutes. Then they go get rides, for a couple hours. Then they go see Captain Jim for, 30 minutes. They'll go have some food for an hour. And then put all that together, and it adds up to a good experience for the family.
Let me ask you this. And, you're in the business, of course.
Yep.
But is this a good thing? Is it good for people to come together, collectively together, and smile and laugh and get their adrenaline going? Is there power to that?
Absolutely. I think that's all there is, right? If we're not all get along together and we're happy, then we're all apart and sad. You don't want that. So, I think that's the goal for like any society, any business, I think that's why it's so popular, why people were going crazy during COVID, because nobody could do anything. Everybody's sitting by themselves at home, and depression's all time high. People are isolated. You can't see your family. I didn't see my mom and dad for like,
2 years.
Almost 2 years. And my brothers, so it was very hard. And I feel so bad for the older people, because they're like the most susceptible to COVID. It had to be like completely, like your grandma, couldn't go around her.
Drive-bys, it was terrible.
Her mom was a caretaker, so she would drive her grandma, so we at least see her. Right. But you can hug her, you can touch her, nothing.
That interaction where you could give her a hug, know, And
that was hard for her, wasn't it?
Oh, it was terrible. It was hard for us.
Right.
I mean, I remember her coming by because we're a very affectionate family. You know, we always, you know, I grew up, you always gave your aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents hugs, kiss on the cheek,
right.
you know, and then it was just normal, like to, oh, we see Oma, and we would hug her, and to see her and not be able to even touch her, it was like, even for my son, like to not be able to hug my mom, you know, because we knew that she was taking care of my grandma.
Yeah.
Right.
It was...
Because we didn't want
sad.
her to get sick, then she can pass it on to...
Of course.
Oma, she's in her 80s, like, holy crap. So we're trying to be, like, super careful, especially in the beginning, because...
Of course.
It was scary when it started happening, like...
Of course.
You know,
everyone.
like, nobody knows...
Yeah.
Because we were up in Tampa. We were actually producing a show for Busch Gardens in Tampa when it was, like, kind of started happening.
Right.
And we went to, I think, a Costco.
That's
and there was no water. Like
or
we went
toilet
there
paper.
Yeah, it was like toilet paper was all gone and all the water in the store was gone.
Wasn't that the most bizarre experience?
But it was scary. Like you couldn't get water. We're like in a big metropolitan city and there's no water. You can't get water. So it was a little freaky there in the beginning. But
it was worse than like the eeriness of, because growing up in Florida. Okay, it'll wake up in a minute. Hurricanes. So it was more eerie feeling than when
hurricanes,
we know a
nobody
hurricane
cares.
is coming.
We were...
Well, they all buy the water.
No,
they buy the water in the gas cans.
This is how much Floridians don't care about hurricanes. Her aunt and uncle... we were up working in Pennsylvania when Irma was hitting. And Irma hit like Sarasota, where we live, like dead on. The eye of the storm...
Oh, we were writing our house off.
Yeah, eye of the storm was 13 miles from our home. That's where it passed. It was a Category 4.
Wow.
And her aunt and uncle, they didn't want to stay in their apartment because it was like a flood area and they wanted to be able to get out. So they came to our house and they took like some Ambien and went to bed. like at 10 p.m. and the storm came through at like 3.
Right. They just slept through it.
They didn't care.
Did.
We had like 5 trees fall.
Right.
She woke up in the morning. She's like super calm, and she's like, she Skyped us or FaceTime, and she's like, yeah, you have this couple of oaks down. I'm like, what? I'm like, how are you so calm about this?
Right.
It was a little bit, it was scary, man, watching it on TV, and you couldn't do anything because we're up in Pennsylvania. You know, like it is what it is. We're writing our whole house.
You wouldn't have changed anything, right?
No.
You just probably wouldn't have taken the Ambien. You've been worried.
Yes.
See, they had it right.
Yes,
right?
they should just went to bed. But
wow.
We didn't go to bed. We stayed up all night watching the radio.
I was watching Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper flew to Sarasota.
Right.
He's sitting there in the rain downtown.
Yeah. You were a tiny baby.
Yeah.
I think you were 2 months old there when that happened.
Power of family and us doing things together. That's great.
Yeah.
I think you're right about the hugs. I don't know what. Maybe we are seeing a little bit of what happens when people aren't together and they don't express themselves that way and people don't hug and we're told that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, because it's like now it's like you don't shake anybody's hand. You do a fist bump, which is fine. But like for a long time, because we didn't know what the virus obviously was, but I think now we're just going to learn to live with it, like the flu, right?
I think it is what it is at this point. Like if everything's open,
sure,
you know, like people are still getting sick, people are still dying from it, but like the alternative is, you know, everybody sits home and
the alternative, the isolation's going to kill, I think. More
but I feel bad for a lot of our industry because basically March 13th was 2020 is when basically they shut down all public gatherings, like concerts, you know, and Florida is 10%. Floridians is self-employed entertainment people. Whether you work in theme parks, you're singers, you're event planners, circus performers, you know, musicians, techs, whatever. Everybody was laid off. So it was like 10 days to stop the spread, and then it was like a month, and then it was like 2 months, and then 3 months, and then 4 months. There's like no end. Like we didn't know. Now, are we ever going to go back to work? And a lot of our friends and family, like they sold, like, because you have to have a truck and trailer or motorhome to travel. So a lot of our friends and family sold their stuff to kind of get through it.
Right. And
then after COVID kind of started subsiding, our industry started coming back, everything went up in price. Like
so you couldn't buy it back for the same thing you sold it.
Oh.
My brother was trying to buy a truck now. It's $85,000 for a pickup truck. A trailer is $100,000 used for, you know, so you need $250,000 just to get back on the road, not counting anything else.
So you better take care of that caravan of yours.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Oh my God,
that's why I was fixing the water today.
That's right.
I was in there. Come on.
We were in a situation. We had to buy a new RV because we had these contracts for the summer. Our old RV, there was some issues with it, and it's either be broken down on the side of the road or buy the new one. And we had 10 days to find a new RV last December. And they really have you, like, because a used one, like you said, is $100,000. We're looking at something worse than what we had. It was like $96,000.
Yeah.
Or we go with the new one that's about $35,000, $40,000 more. $50,000 more, maybe.
Yeah, but this trailer was like $50,000 less, like a year and a half ago. It's just
like seriously, and it's like now I got a mortgage on an RV. I have a 20-year loan for an RV.
But
it's
you're back
only going to last me 5 years.
But we're on the road. Yes,
you're back on the road. You're flying through the air.
Yes,
with the greatest of ease.
So,
right?
You know
yes,
what?
we love it.
That's great.
My leg is hurting.
Okay.
And Mooch is gonna. He's gonna. Look, Mooch is a headliner now.
Oh, he is.
He's a headliner. Come on up, Mooch. Let's talk for a few minutes, okay?
Oh, now you're gonna hide.
Mooch is doing some work.
No, Mooch, you're on camera. Come say hi real quick.
He's going to be a magician now.
Quickly.
He's disappearing.
Okay, his leg fell asleep. Do you want? You gotta do the mic check. Come on. Show him how you do the mic check. Come on.
He's being shy.
Okay, you're not gonna tell him about your act.
That's
it's fine.
That's all right.
You have to come see the show. Find us.
Well.
But they can't hear you.
So, Mooch, you enjoy doing a balancing act with your dad?
There we go.
There you go.
There we go. The star of the
testing. 1, 2, 3.
Star of the show.
Okay. Tell them what do you do in the show?
I hear it. Ready?
You ready? Here we go.
Dance. Get up. Stand up.
Right,
you balance?
Ready? I got you.
Okay.
Do your dance.
Do your dance. Show them your dance.
Do your dance, Moochie.
Your famous Mooch dance.
Yo.
You got it?
You at the yo-yo, you gotta do the dance.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, he's making a liar out of us.
Hey.
Hey!
All right.
That's it.
There you go, Mooch.
Dramatic pause.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Mooch, can you tell him how old you are?
You're 4? You're 4 now, Mooch? Oh, that's great.
But you're almost. You have a birthday in less than 2 weeks.
Yes.
How old are you gonna be?
5.
You can speak in microphone here.
Mooch, what do you think about your mother?
5.
Okay.
What about you? What do you think about your mother flying real high in the air? Is that cool?
Not that cool.
Yeah.
You gotta speak here. You gotta speak clearly.
What do you like that I do? Because I do a couple acts in the show. What's your favorite act that I do?
Tornado spin.
The tornado spin. Yes. That's when she goes super fast, right? Yeah. Yep. Oh, you wanna? Okay, Mooch is good. He likes.
Put him on?
He likes to hear himself. He sounds great in these, right?
Oh, wow.
Here's the magic, Mooch. How's that?
Well, what is the tornado
sounds
spin?
pretty good,
Can you
right?
tell them what the tornado spin is?
Well, what
what
happens?
do I hang
You gotta tell them because we're.
You gotta tell them.
Does Mama hang by her neck? And then she swings really high, and then she spins really fast.
That's pretty cool, right? I understand that. I understand that you're in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
For test, how many times you can say that? That's pretty good. You know that you're in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Check.
Bounce.
Okay, bounce check. Did the check bounce last week? No.
No, it didn't last week.
He's done.
That's a good thing.
See you later. Okay, I'll put it up. Okay, fine, go.
Okay, same thing.
That was a cameo appearance.
The beautiful thing about this is your family. You're here.
Yeah.
You're doing these things together, and that's great.
Yeah, we love it. We wouldn't have it any other way.
Can you imagine doing anything else?
I couldn't. And I've thought about like what would I do? If there was a day that came that I couldn't perform, I told my husband, I said I would have to stay some way involved in entertainment.
Right.
Whether I would become a booking agent for other acts or, even making costumes, costume designing, or I would have to stay some way in the industry. There's no way I can just,
go away
and become a teacher.
And it's hard if you do it because I start performing, and same like him. We're less than a year old, we're in front of the audience and the parents put the kids in front of an audience because you're used to it from a young age. It's not unnatural to you.
Right.
It's what you're used to. Because if you put me in spandex, I'm a teenager in front of 20,000 people. Oh my God.
So you started young too, right?
Yeah, I was 10 months old when I started performing with my mom and dad.
10 months old.
Yeah, I just did a little.
Which was late. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just did a little dance. I would come out for my parents' act, but yeah, I've been performing. Oh my gosh. Professionally, I started doing hand balancing with my dad when I was 5. So 32 years I've been performing already as a professional.
I was about 5.5, and I started doing trapeze, one of the acts. Obviously not the caliber that I do now, But I was a little girl, and I did trapeze and Spanish web. I was about 5.5 years old, so 33 years. Because when people ask, well, how long have you been performing? And you say 33 years, or I'll just say over 30 years. Now I should just say over 25 years. It makes me a little bit younger.
But isn't it great, though, to still be doing this? And you can imagine doing this into your 80s because you have family that justify that.
I mean, my mother is 61.
Right.
And she fell in 2017. She was I'm sure you might have heard when she was working with Nick Wallenda at Circus Sarasota, and during one of the rehearsals, they were doing an 8-person pyramid trying to beat a record. And they came down, 5 people hit the ground out of the 8. My mom was the 8th person on the top and the oldest person in the troupe at the time. And she broke her pelvis, her hip cup shattered, her femur, her leg went through her hip cup. Long story short, 19 weeks, I think it was.
Yeah, she fell February 8th, and this was so crazy because
I was pregnant with him.
She was pregnant. We had our fair run already, and she was pregnant, so we hired another girl to work with her mom for the summer. We're like, all right, we got to figure it out. So then her mom fell. She couldn't work. Her mom couldn't work. We're like, oh my God. So Rieta, she fell February 8th. We had a contract June 30th. We opened. And she had a broken pelvis, broken leg, broken face.
Arm and shoulder.
And
facial
it was like
fractures.
3.5 months later, she was back to doing the act.
Wow.
For us. It's crazy. But she's a very active person, and that's the power.
People heal quickly, right?
It's not even heal quickly. You have to want to heal. Like, for example, Rieta was 55 when she fell?
57. 50, what was she, 55?
55 or 56 she fell. And she was in Sarasota Memorial Hospital, and there was another woman that fell in her tub, and she fractured her hip as well, but not nearly as bad as Rieta. Fell 44 feet.
Right.
To the ground, and this woman slipped in a shower, and she
wasn't doing an act. She was just taking a bath.
Yeah, she fractured her hip a little bit. It wasn't like nothing as bad as remotely.
Right.
But she was like laying there like she was dead.
Right.
Like she's like, oh, my life is over, and she was like 15 years younger than her mom.
Right.
And she's all like this, and like, oh. And Rieta's over there trying to get up and do sit-ups and move around.
My mom was not taking any of the doctor's nose.
Yeah, because you got to self-motivate to get better. If you're like gonna oh, okay, I'm done, then you're not gonna.
You got to get up.
You got to be positive.
She was
you got to keep going.
Wheelchair. She was 0 weight bearing on the leg because of the hip for 8 weeks or something. And then as soon as she got cleared to do certain things, she was out in the backyard practicing. She was in a walker.
Yeah, it's a miracle nobody got killed, because that's 40 feet, straight down. Like, go jump off this building and see what happens. It's like, it's crazy.
So clearly there have been some close calls, but there have been some final calls too. You've had some death in the family.
There was a great Aunt Yeti that fell off the sway pole in Omaha, Nebraska.
No.
Who Aunt Yeti's married, who she's named after. That was... she did the same act that my grandmother did, the sway pole, and she did the headstand on top of the sway pole, and she fell over backwards, and they still to this day, they don't really know what caused her. She blacked out. Did she have a pinched nerve in her neck? And she did the headstand.
She probably blacked out, because people don't realize, like, in some of the arenas, and especially like circus tents, how hot it gets. Because now there's like ventilation and stuff, but before, like, even like we perform now, like I do a balancing act where I'm just like 13 feet off the ground or so. When you're on the ground compared to being 13 feet high, is like a 20 degree temperature change. It's crazy because the lights and stuff, and there's nowhere for the hot air to go. You sweat like crazy. I think she probably passed out. But you're probably referring to her when Karl fell in Puerto Rico. It was like 1970.
78 or 79.
Her mother was there.
17.
She was 17 years old, and she was on the other side waiting for him to come. And he was doing a promotion. The circus wasn't doing good financially, and it was their day off, and he offered to do it for free to like drum up business for the show.
Right.
And he was suffering, I think, a broken neck, right?
He had a broken neck. He had a hernia.
He was like
and I think he
72?
had cracked ribs.
Before he went up.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was...
Yeah,
the type
and
of
he
person-
offered to do it for free.
And the type of
to get
person,
business.
my great-grandfather got paid very, very good money to do those skywalks. He did them across baseball stadiums, football stadiums, between buildings. He, this is what he did. He got paid very, I don't know how much, but I just have been told
It was a lot.
it was a lot. And that's what my cousin Nick now does. He does the Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls, and everything. And so my great-grandfather, he knew that if he did this walk between two buildings, there was a hotel and another building, downtown San Juan, everybody would come out to see it. And they would know then the Wallendas are performing at the circus to try to bring in that media. So, and then he fell and died. He hit a taxi cab. And he was, injured. He was doing minimal in the act at the time because of his injuries. But again, he had a contract. He knew he needed to fulfill this contract. And even recovering from, he still had a neck, did he have a neck brace on? I don't remember. I've seen some pictures. So.
The wire was not set up correctly, and the wire was, had guy line ropes coming down from it, but they were not attached to the wire like they normally would be. They were shackled underneath, so the wire did have a lot of play and it was very loose. So when my grandfather walked, he made it 3/4 of the way, and he did attempt to sit down, and he always taught us to not ever drop our balancing pole. So he sat down near one of the ropes and he attempted to get onto the wire with his hands, but he had lost his balancing pole and it flipped over and it came up under his arm and it knocked his hand off the wire, and he didn't have enough strength to hold on with one arm with all that force, and he came off the wire and he fell 10 stories down. My first thought was to get to my grandmother, who was upstairs in the Holiday Inn suite at the hotel that he was walking the wire from, and I wanted to get to her before the press or anyone else to give her the news. She knew it the minute I got to her. I got to the door and she opened the door and she said, "He's gone." And I said, "Yes."
When that happened, was there a moment of where it, deterred the family? Were there members like, we may not want to do this?
My mom's, I believe, my mom's brother flew in, Ricky, to finish because my mom worked a show that night with the two guys that were in the troupe. My mom even got some threatening letters and stuff. It was really weird over there. And she worked that night with the two guys that were in the troupe. I don't remember who they are. And I believe that my mom's brother might have flown over to help, or another family member, maybe an uncle, Tino, or another one of our cousins. And the show went on.
Right.
And, they came back and they finished the dates and anything that they had going forward. I think, the family worked together, kind of like when my mom had her accident. We had Florida Strawberry Festival in March, which was literally 3 weeks right after the accident. And we didn't cancel our contract. We contacted the fair immediately and we said, we're not going to have the performer that was under the contract with us, but we will produce a show. And we brought in my grandmother. My grandmother filled in for my mom.
Wow.
And she was...
Oh, she stole the show because she was she was 80 at that time.
Oh, sure.
And
81.
she'd come out and nobody cared what we did, right? Because she's just an 80-year-old woman to climb this.
Right.
I was 5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
So
Everyone's
I was still in the
cheering.
show.
Oh, she was great. Right. She was so good.
I was still announcing in the show and assisting Simon in the balancing act.
And she almost got to the point where we drove to see her. She was doing do you know what a sway pole is?
Yes.
Okay. So she was doing her 100-foot pole, and we drove to West Palm Beach to see her, and it was like heroes, like super bad weather. And it was like lightning and stuff. And we're like, she's going to cancel. We'll go go to Chinese buffet or something, whatever.
Right.
She's like, I'm doing the show.
Corral was her
She's
favorite.
Yeah. She's like, I'm doing the show. We're like, what? She's like, I don't think she cared. Like, you know, it was gonna kill her. It was gonna kill her.
I've never seen her perform live.
This was years ago. Yeah, and so she goes up there. It's like lightning everywhere, and she's in this 100-foot metal pole. I'm like, oh my God.
Showmanship's not what you do, it's how you do it. And he was a booger on smile. Always smile. Even if you're hurting or it's not going too good, you smile and take your bows, you know, to the audience and everything. Make eye-to-eye contact with the audience, smiling at them and everything. He was very, very much on that you have to sell yourself.
You guys drove 4 hours for Simon to see me perform. I'm working.
She's crazy.
And I was like, Oma, you don't need to do it. Like, it's fine. We'll come back. We'll spend the night. We'll book a hotel. We'll stay tomorrow. Right. No. And she worked.
And she did it.
And made us all
And then we went to Golden Corral.
Yep. And then we went to Golden Corral. And Simon paid.
So that's why the family is so well known. It's because of this professional commitment. The show must go on. It's just in the face of death. It's got to go on.
Yeah. We don't cancel shows because of, you know.
And her family does crazy stuff. Like her mom, she did an event for Disney in Paris or for some movie over there they did. Right. And her sway pole they built, it was like
250 feet. But it was like,
wow.
My mom flew over there. She didn't even know if the sway pole.
Just to climb.
She said it didn't even have steps. It had like nudges.
Can you give you a pole this big with nudges on it and it's 250 feet straight up? Are you joking? Oh my God, I'm sweating. Like I'm sweating thinking about it. That's crazy.
So, and every time, like when we were on the road and stuff, you know, my hands rip, my knees are sore, my ankles hurt. You know, I've got like holes sometimes, like in my hands. I'm like, Oma. I would call my grandmother. That's what I really, really miss. Like not being able to pick up the phone and call her and complain. Right. And then her tell me about how she was doing like 8 acts in the show before and you could not make her feel sorry for you. You could not make her be like, oh, honey, it's okay. Take a rest. She'll be like, pour some rubbing alcohol in it, pack it. And she goes, and get out there and do the show, honey. Right. She goes, we don't cancel. You know, you don't.
It's that commitment.
Yeah.
That commitment. So you never think about canceling no matter what?
We cancel only inclement weather because, like, now that we have like the technology, because before the older generation, didn't have no weather app or whatever, weather channel. Now we only cancel if it's like really bad rain. Right. Or it's like impossible to do anything because everything's soaking wet. Or if there's lightning within, I think we do like 7 or 8 miles because we're working with all metal stuff, so it can literally kill you.
Oma might do.
No, I'm getting ready to say. Yeah. I'm hearing you're saying that you're not because we've got the technology. Yeah. But if she were here.
Well, maybe she would be like.
I think at 80 you feel like you've lived a good life.
But yeah, because she was already.
If you go, you go. It's kind of it's up to God.
Yeah,
whatever.
She had faith. Let me tell you. You know, we all do. That. We all got to have it.
No, I can't imagine it being any. I just love your story because it's so much the story of a resilient
We could stay here for hours. I could tell you so many.
Yeah, well, we've already talked before, so this is good.
Yep. So.
No, this is great. So let's go back to the beginning. Yeah. All right. So if we go back to the beginning of Wikipedia, you know, in the very, very beginning, well, he was inspired. I mean, why did he? What happened?
For as far back as like my knowledge and what we know is that they were a gypsy family. Okay. And over in Germany, and
that's what people did. Like if you were obviously they didn't have 150, 180 years ago. They didn't have motorhomes and trailers. You had a
covered wagon.
You got a covered wagon, and you had a horse, and and you lived in the wagon or whatever, or
train cars.
Gypsies weren't like the highest, class of people considered. Right. They were considered like the hooligans who travel between towns, or mysterious and.
But they
all
put
this
on
stuff.
a good show.
Yes, but one of because Uncle Tina wrote a book. We were just reading it. Do you know Jameson whiskey?
I don't think I know that.
It's like Jack Daniels and then Jameson.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So, I guess the guy that owned the distillery over in Europe, his daughter fell in love with like one of her uncles, like great uncles over there, and she left the family.
Uh-oh.
It was like a big scandal because she's living this big like fortune to go live with a gypsy. And then they had 5 kids together, and then he left her.
Yep.
So she should have stayed with the distillery. Oh my goodness!
But my grandfather and his brothers, as children, they were hand balancers, and he did a very good hand balancing act before he became a wire walker. So wire was the first generation from Karl. And him and his brothers then learned to walk the wire. And my grandfather was a very, very good wire walker.
But it did start with him being an acrobatic.
Yeah. So he was an acrobat.
He was an acrobat.
I think they were searching for to translate their skills into a bigger act, like a bigger attraction. Because if you look back in like the history of like circus, like my dad showed me like this. It's not an encyclopedia. It's like a circus history book, and some of the contraptions they had. Oh my God! It's like they had no regard for health or safety. Yeah,
there was no OSHA back then.
Yeah, OSHA violations are through the roof. But
back to circus being also history. My grandfather's brother, Gunther Wallenda, who was a famous wire walker, came over from Germany. He was part of the troupe on Ringling and all those years and had a daughter. He married a lady when they were working in Mexico with Circus Haiti. Her name was Margarita, and they had a daughter named Sandy. But then when my great uncle retired, he became a school teacher. But what he did was he went to the Board of Education in Sarasota, and he got them to pass for circus history to be a credited history course, and he taught at Sarasota High School. And
so it's an academic discipline now.
It is, and it has now become
it's very
a huge
fascinating.
part.
Like you see, like all the different families and stuff, and the history. It's very.
So
very
you're Rhodes Scholars.
Well,
basically,
there's so much so he. After, he was much, much older, and he wasn't going to go on the road anymore. And I believe it was probably even after his brother passed, and him and Uncle Ottawa, one of them became a mechanic because he had so much knowledge from a young age working on trucks and cars. He was almost like a scientist.
We're working on I think it was Holland America or something, and this like 15 years ago maybe.
Yeah.
And back then, like, they had no internet on the ships. It was like really terrible. They had like 2 channels, and so we'd watch the History Channel all the time.
I know what he's gonna tell you.
And just that's it. It's like History Channel or like CNN International. There's like 2. Take your choice. So we're watching History Channel, and her grandfather and the troupe was famous. They wore sailor outfits for their theme.
They did unicycles
for their show.
too.
Right. Yeah, they did like a whole bunch of stuff. And so we're watching it's like this World War II documentary, and I see Hitler. And he's doing his thing, whatever, and I see these people in sailor suits right now start doing like circus tricks, like unicycles. I'm like, is that your family?
And I was like, no.
She's like, no, absolutely, we would never work. And then I was reading the autobiography Tina wrote, and yes, it was. So her family performed for Hitler in World War II.
They didn't know.
Yes, it was at the beginning.
From the beginning,
they didn't know what was to come.
You did what you were told.
Yeah,
but
and it was crazy.
My grandmother's sister Jenny.
Right.
Escaped that time where she led 200 women to safety and then got put up in front of a firing squad to be killed when U.S. paratroopers parachuted and saved their life.
Wow,
and
what a story.
My grandmother's sister was in charge of those 200 girls trying to escape.
And Jenny is Nick's grandmother, so if she got shot there, and it was like a couple of minutes difference, she got shot, and none of this happens, and Nick doesn't do all these things, and it's like, so it's so weird, like a couple of minutes here and there,
be, right?
Yeah.
How things like unfold.
That's when she came over to the United States.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Are you ever cease to be amazed by just little connections, and how one little thing connects to another thing, and then you've got a son that's broken a record because he's the youngest at something. And you're doing something, and you're breaking records, and you're collectively doing things, and it's all around making people happy. But the family commitment to doing excellent, that's impressive.
Yeah, we're
That's
just
a good thing.
try to, do our best,
Yeah, we love what we do.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Like, for example, like Lyric and I, we don't have college education. So like a lot of people are like, oh, you want to go to college? You want to? I don't see the point in doing it, because you go to get a higher education to learn a certain trade you want to do for your life. We've been learning our trade for 30 plus years.
We're still learning.
It's like, imagine going to college for 30 years.
Talk about on-the-job training.
Yeah, we have exactly on-the-job training. So like, this is what we
from the best in the industry, right?
Absolutely. So this is what we love doing, and we're very successful doing it, and we enjoy it. That's if you enjoy something and you're successful at it, it's like the best of both worlds.
And
I feel
I remember, like as a kid, even people kind of like, oh well, Lyric, she's not going to school regularly, or she's not going to be able to walk in graduations with a cap and gown and ball. But I might have missed out on some of those, moments of, a regular child that lives in town. But I also got to experience because places that my friends at home were reading about in books, but I was actually traveling to these places.
You were there.
I was
You were
there.
putting on a show.
I went to Gettysburg. I went to Washington and saw the monuments. I've been to Thailand. I've been to Mexico. I've been to Canada. I've been to all these different places where some kids that I went to school with never left Florida. They still haven't left Florida, or they have not even left Sarasota. They go like down to Venice Beach or up to Tampa, maybe to Orlando, to Disney. And that's the one thing, like with our son, people say, oh, well, what are you going to do when he has to go to school? I'm like, well, he's going to work, and when we're home, he'll go to school, and when we have a job, he goes with that.
Most of us, like when we're home, and we usually have a lot of time off during the school year, and that's how I went to school. And it obviously have some absentee days and stuff, and we all make it work.
We just make it work.
Right.
Yeah.
You're forever learning, though. I mean, just the idea that you are having these international experiences.
Yep.
I contend, I've interviewed a lot of people over the years and traveled quite a bit. I contend that the more experiences we have with people that are a little different than we are, the better we become.
Absolutely.
And eventually, it gets really hard to hate.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because like if you're, because I feel like everybody, when you work like in one place, you get your like group of friends, and it's usually not like you used to who you're used to or whatever. People have their little cliques and stuff. But in the circus, like when we do seasons or whatever, like for example, we work at a fair, right?
Right.
We don't know who the fair hired. There can be 5 other shows that are completely different people from what we do, and we hang out and we socialize for 10 days, whatever. And then we go to another fair, and it's a completely other set of people that we hang out with and stuff. And so we do this like 10, 15 times every summer. Plus, then we did
so many people.
We did 35 halftime shows last year. So then we're meeting, the interns, the entertainment directors,
And there are people that you'll know for years.
Staff.
And that's the bad thing for me is that I'm terrible with names, and we meet so many people. Like, oh my god, it's like a nightmare for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
But social media has made it great. On one, like a lot of people are like, oh, social media, but we've connected with so many different people.
Of course.
And then we can follow each other, and
Yeah, it's made it so much easier.
Life is amazing now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they're miracles, but I do think they make things a lot easier for us now.
Yes.
Now that we've become friends, we can FaceTime. We can
absolutely.
do
You have
all
our
those
number.
things. That's right.
If you're on Instagram or Facebook, we'll follow you back.
Yeah.
This guy's got his own Instagram.
I stopped posting it because he was.
Creepy.
I started his Instagram was for like friends and family.
Right.
And he had this picture that Ellen shared.
Right.
And he got like a whole bunch of followers, and then he had another couple of videos go like viral. It was like millions and millions of views. But then he has like almost 30,000 followers on Instagram. But it's like...
And you were feeling bad because you didn't have as many?
No. It's just like the people. It's like people were working somewhere. Like, oh, I want to meet him as like adult people. I'm like, I don't know. So I'm like, I want to
wait till he gets a little older.
What he wants to do when he's older, then
then he can make those decisions.
Exactly.
Guys, this has been fantastic.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just really been great.
Thank you for
I'm so glad.
Us.
Well, I'm just so glad we had a chance to sit down and get to know each other a little bit, because it's such a great thing, and just to know more about your family, to learn about Mooch, and I can see Mooch 10 years from now. Hello, Mooch.
Yep.
That is going to be an exciting thing.
We'll be signing off.
Bye-bye, buddy. Signing off, right? Hey, Mooch, how long is it to showtime? And we got 10 minutes to showtime?
Yep.
Say 10 minutes.
Let's give us a countdown. 10 minutes to showtime, folks.
You gotta say right here.
Right there in the throat.
Say 10 minutes to showtime.
No.
You're shy? No, you're shy. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Life in the Carolinas podcast. If you enjoyed your time with us, please visit the show's website at lifeinthecarolinas.com. Join our mailing list, and we'll keep you updated every week on what we have coming up and other interesting things around the Carolinas. We value you as a podcast subscriber. We'll see you next week. And remember what Karl says, it's never a bad time for a good story.